Shidou Ryusei at the current point in the anime is the second strongest blue locker in the series. His ability to perform incredible and insane plays from within the goal box, as well as his instinctual movements and reflexes, make him a deadly opponent. However, that only applied back in the third selection. In the current stages of the manga, I wouldn't even consider Shido to be in the top 10. I know, save the dislikes for after the video, Shido Glazers. In today's video, I'll be expressing my natural distaste for Shido and explaining why Shido isn't as good as you all consider him to be. Before I do though, I want to mention my Discord server, that being the new Egoist Geeks. There, myself and other BLUELOCK content creators engage with our community about all things BLUELOCK. It's also the best place to get information regarding the BLUELOCK New Generation 11 movie that my team and I are working on. So if you are interested, click the link down below to join and become a part of that community. More info on that project at the end of the video. And like in all of my videos, spoilers for the BLUELOCK manga up to chapter 283, and if you aren't caught up to that point, I would suggest you click off this video now because you will be spoiled. Now, in order to determine whether Shido is as bad as I say he is, we should look back at everything that he has done since he was first introduced in the series. Shido was first introduced in chapter 88 of the manga, first being seen with him grabbing Igaguri by the skull. In that same chapter, Igaguri states that Shido was about to crush his skull with pure strength alone, however this is likely an over-exaggeration. In the following chapter, in the match against Kunigami and Ryo, Shido was able to move quickly from one side of the field to the other insanely fast. He was also able to overpower Kunigami and score a line drive bicycle kick while being pressured. To conclude his second selection feats, we see him appear in chapter 94, being revealed as the last man to survive the second selection, teaming up with both Ryo and Corona. In the following chapter, we learn that Shido was ranked second in feats in the second selection, allowing for him to team up with Rin as the headliners for Team A. In chapter 98, we see him send a pass to Isagi, as well as display some incredible reaction time. Towards the middle of that chapter, we see Shido score while being pressured by two players, with him kicking the ball backwards to score. In that same chapter, we see Shido along with Isagi lose against Karasu's assassin-style dribbling. In chapter 100, we see Shido collide with Rin as they both attempt to score from Hiyori's pass. In chapter 101, Shido abandons a possible chemical reaction with Isagi to score a rotating drive shot. In chapter 102, Shido intercepts a pass to Shigiri in the air, and in chapter 107, we see that in the fourth match of the third selection, Shido was able to score 2 goals in the match against Team B. In that same chapter, we see Rin and Shido both fighting for the final goal, with Rin barely beating him to the punch. In chapter 109, we learn that Shido had an average of 2 goals per match during the third selection, and was originally designated to be the Joker to switch the attacking patterns of the BLUELOCK 11 during the U20 match. However, we learn in that same chapter, Shido was chosen by Itoshi Sai to play for the Japan U20 team. Now we need to take a huge jump to chapter 126, where Shido is finally played during the U20 game. During the same chapter, his use of his erratic movements allowed for him to link up with both Sai and Sendo, allowing for Shido to make an easy launch into a drive shot. However, thanks to Nico's defensive zone, they stop him at the draw of a foul. In chapter 127, we see him use his dragon drive, allowing for them to tie up the U20 team against BLUELOCK. In chapter 129, Ryo uses his chameleon style to intercept a pass to Shido, and in chapter 130 uses this ability to copy other defenders, restricting Shido's playstyle. However, that isn't enough to stop Shido from entering flow, allowing for him to score a second goal, bringing the U20 team into the lead. In chapter 135, Shido shoots while being pressured by Ryo, however Gagamaru is able to stop it. In chapter 140, Shido attempts to link up with Sai, but Rin intercepts it, stopping their attack. In chapter 143, Shido was stopped by an Isagi and Ryo tag team, allowing for BLUELOCK to regain possession. In chapter 145, Shido and Aiku, both in flow, double teamed Rin in order to get him to fail his shot. Now that's all of the Shido feats we have for a while, so let's take a huge jump into the NEL to get some more. In chapter 170, we see that Shido earned a 20 million yen value, and we see in chapter 171 that it was due to him scoring 1 goal against Ubers. We take an even larger jump into chapter 244, where we see Shido score a goal thanks to Charles's pass, and again in chapter 245, we see him score using his dragon header technique. Given these 2 goals, in chapter 246 we see the current BLUELOCK rankings, with Shido placing 4th at 100 million. In chapter 249, we see Shido pressure Kaiser to steal the ball, however he fails. In chapter 252, we see Shido score thanks to replicating Hiyori and Isagi's top performance with Charles, allowing for PXG to draw first blood. However, starting in chapter 254, we see a long line of moments of Shido becoming absolutely useless as Kunigami becomes a Shido man marker. And this isn't a one-off occurrence. In chapter 255, it happens not only once, but twice. It happens again in chapter 257 and again in chapter 262. In chapter 263, we see Kunigami gain possession of the ball while holding Shido off from stealing it. In chapter 264, we see Kaiser pass to Kunigami, who is still marking Shido, and he holds him off from taking it before sending a pass back to Kaiser. In chapter 265, we see Shido again being held back by Kunigami when Kaiser tries to go for his Magnus shot. In the following chapter, we see Shido as the Magnus shot flies into the net. In chapter 268, we see Kunigami holding a mark on Shido again, and in chapter 270, 272, we see Shido call for a pass from Charles, with Kunigami still marking him. In chapter 274, we see Shido break free from Kunigami thanks to Zantetsu and rush towards Charles' pass to battle Rin for it. In the chapter directly after, Shido and Rin both compete for the ball, but Shido reacts too slowly, allowing for Rin to take advantage and score a goal. In chapter 276, Shido compliments Rin on his goal, and in chapter 277, Isagi and Noah break past Shido with ease. In chapter 278, both Shido and Charles double team Noah, but they fail to stop him from passing. In chapter 280, Zantetsu passes to Shido, who passes the ball to Charles. In that same chapter, Charles goes to pass to Shido but gets marked by Kaiser, and Rin steals the ball. And in the latest chapter, being chapter 283, we see Shido being marked by Ness as Isagi and Rin begin their face-off. And as of now, that is all of the feats of Shidou Ryusei as of right now in the story. Now finally going into my reasoning, you have heard every single thing that Shido has done so far in the Blue Lock series. So now it's time for me to explain why I think he's mid. Starting with my first argument, his playstyle is incredibly poor at this point in the series. Throughout the series, Shido plays in one of two ways. A, he runs towards a loose ball in order to score, or B, he runs to wherever he wants to and awaits a pass. Now in theory, this playstyle isn't so bad. I mean, it's exactly what Isagi does, isn't it? Run to a good spot to score, await a pass, or run towards where the ball will be and then score. Their playstyles are pretty similar. Well, the difference between how those two play is actually very different. Isagi calculates the best spot to score using his vision and brain, and then positions in an optimal spot to shoot from with his direct shooting weapon. Shido doesn't do that. He follows his instincts and runs to wherever he wants to and then awaits a pass to score, or runs towards a loose ball. However, from the community standpoint, it seems like I'm the only person who realizes how ineffective this is. Whether it's logical or not, whether it's possible to hit a pass to that location or not, Shido will run to wherever he wants to score. And at this point in the series, that playstyle is incredibly poor. When looking at the upcoming World Cup arc, there are going to be defenders who are on Aiku's level or above, and we see that in the Japan U20 match, sending a precise pass sometimes isn't enough to stop defenders like him, as he was able to intercept an ad-libbed pass from Bachira. So in order for Shido's playstyle to work, someone will need to make a precise pass towards Shido that puts it exactly to where he wants to be, but also not to where the defender can reach it. And in the instance that a defender can reach it a single time, that playstyle is dead in the water. Because we have seen from the PhD game where Kunigami literally 6-0'd Shido in terms of ball reception, that if Shido does get stopped, he won't try to come up with an alternative solution. What I will say is a good thing about Shido is that he is very unpredictable, which makes him a very good Joker style of player. Send him on when nobody knows what he will do, and if he manages to score, he did his job perfectly. However, once people realize how he likes to play and what he's going to do, he's pretty easy to stop. Shown again with him being absolutely useless against Kunigami. If he had just spoken with Karasu and Zantetsu about pulling Kunigami off of him sooner, he would have been able to play in ways that he wanted to. But instead, Shido would rather just do whatever he wants to and try to outmuscle or outpace Kunigami, which every single time led to Shido losing. Now the next point I want to bring up is kind of one that ties back into the first one, saying that Shido is basically just all of the worst parts of Nagi. And another point that kind of connects to this, Shido without a genius midfielder isn't really that good. Let's start by addressing the top point. I see a ton of people talking about how Nagi is a bad player because he is so dependent on Ryo, but then those same people will glaze Shido calling him a better striker than Burū. That really doesn't make any sense considering what you're saying about Nagi applies more to Shido. We see in chapter 179 that Chris determines from Nagi's plays and performances that his skill level is determined by that of his partner, and that if his partner is bad, Nagi will be bad in return. The same goes for the reverse. How does that not sound like Shido? I mean, sure, in the third selection I will admit that Shido was good, as his physical abilities allowed for him to outclass Ryo and outpace Kunigami, as well as his flexibility allowing for him to perform shots that Kunigami couldn't stop with simple pressuring. But we aren't in the third selection anymore, and Shido realistically hasn't developed at all. And before you say, that's because Shido's been this good, he doesn't need an evolution. No, it's because Shido has had a partner that heightens and complements his skills so perfectly. Sai, whose ability to calculate the perfect trajectory to place the ball for Shido to take uncontested shots, and Charles, who shares the same instinctual style, hitting wild and crazy passes that Shido can respond to however he wants. But if you take away the partners who mesh with Shido really well, he really isn't that good on offense. I mean, Ego himself said that he isn't able to form chemical reactions, which I know you Shido glazers love to mention, but that realistically isn't a good quality. If you struggle with compatibility, that is a negative attribute. Hell, it's a negative for Burū, why is it not a negative for Shido? The only difference between Burū and Shido is that given a ball that isn't within their scoring scoring zone, as a striker, Burū has that ability to get the ball there on his own. He's been shown to be able to work with others now, which sort of neutralizes that negative attribute for Burū to some degree. That's not how it is for Shido. He is still incredibly particular as to who he wants to form chemical reactions with, or more, who he can form chemical reactions with. And that is a negative trait. Like I mentioned, going into the World Cup arc, if Shido has trouble working with other people, why would he realistically be put as a regular on the pitch? The only other use he has is as a joker position like Ego was going to use him for. Without a genius passer in Sai or Charles, Shido's skills are drastically lower, since he has no real usage except as a direct shot merchant. Oh, and that's another thing, if you stop Shido from moving, he is absolutely useless. We see in the U20 match that Shido, who was pressured by Ryo, couldn't do anything once he was forced into a still position. And going back to his playstyle, rather than send the ball away and work around Ryo with his physical abilities, he instead chose to fight him directly and shoot just because he wanted to, which led to Gagamaru easily stopping his shot with a one-handed still catch. And this proof continues into the NEL, where Shido was recorded to have shot 12 times with only 3 being of any merit. Those aren't really good numbers if you could tell. Also, please stop comparing Shido to Holland or any real life player. It really doesn't work as well as you think it is, as it isn't an accurate comparison. One is a fictional character and one is an actual professional. When looking at Holland, who is a professional player, to be a professional player, you have to have average skills across the board. This applies to areas like shooting, dribbling, passing, etc. Shido doesn't have that. All he has is decent speed and decent shooting. He really isn't that good if he doesn't have a crazy midfielder backing him. And before you say, oh, what about Hiyori or Ryo? Why would either of those players pass to Shido when they could pass to Isagi, Burū, Chigiri, Rin, Bachira, hell, even Nagi? They all outclass Shido in one way or another. And the last point I want to cover is Shido scoring against the World 5, which is the point that a lot of Shido Glazers like to bring up. Yes, I will admit scoring against the World 5 is an incredibly impressive feat, at least for when it happened. Because I'm not talking about second selection Shido or second selection players anymore, I'm talking about current Shido and current players. When you compare Shido in the second selection and Shido now, he hasn't developed at all. But you know who has grown and who has developed? The rest of the Blue Lockers. Rin was able to score in that match, and he was nowhere near as good as he is now. Hell, if you put current Isagi and current Burū into the World 5 match, I'm betting that they would score. Hell, even current Bachira might be able to, considering that during the World 5 match, he was the only person able to beat one of them in a one-on-one, something that no other player was able to do. Don't get me wrong, scoring against the World 5 is incredibly impressive, but think about it like this. Shido was good back then because he was surrounded by people who weren't as good as him, but now, everyone has gotten a lot better, and Shido just hasn't grown at all. He has had no reason to develop. He's had no drive to either. His ego is just hinged on him playing. He doesn't want to evolve. He has shown no reason or any drive towards evolving as a player. And that is a bad thing. With no motivation to evolve, how is he any better than Nagi, a player that you all have been calling mid? He is basically just Shido without a partner to help him. The absolute hypocrisy from you Shido fans. Also, I will say this as a final remark. In terms of overall individual ability, I wouldn't even put Shido on the same level as current Ryo. And yes, I'm dead serious. But those were some of my reasons as to why I believe that Shidou Ryusei is mid and not as good as people say he is. Aside from that, I hope you guys did enjoy this video and will continue to enjoy it in the future. And calling back to the BLUELOCK New World project, we are currently looking for some background artists to help assist us on this project. So if you are interested, reach out to me on any of the socials listed in my bio or in the description. And if you'd like to help donate to the film in order to allow me to pay my team more for their hard work and potentially get more fluid and intense sequences, you can do so by leaving a super chat on this video with the tagline of New Generation 11 movie. Donating will get your name placed in the credits of the film as a contributor to the project. And if you end up donating $25 or more and you are a part of my Discord server, you will get access to information before anyone else, as well as get a special role in the server. We appreciate your donations, but please do not feel obligated to donate. All we can ask for is your continued support. I'll let you guys in on more details in the future, but I hope you guys are excited. Aside from that though, for the question of the video, on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you rank Shido as a player? 1 being the worst, 10 being the best. Leave me your thoughts down below in the comment section. And like always, thank you all for watching, like and subscribe to see more awesome BLUELOCK content just like this.